Good evening. This is the regular City Commission meeting for the City of Largo for Tuesday, July 21st, 2020. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is a virtual meeting, so we're meeting on Zoom, and there's folks joining us across the internet on Facebook Live, as well as staff at City Hall helping us out. So got a bunch of folks with us tonight, but we're going to start with an invocation given by Senior Pastor Rocco Sansone from Largo First Church of the Nazarene, and then that will be immediately followed by a Pledge of Allegiance given by some youth from our community. So, Pastor, you're up. Take it away.
Okay, thanks for the honor to give the vocation. Shall we pray? Lord, we ask your blessing upon this meeting. We ask for blessings upon the agenda tonight for each item. May it be important to you. We ask your blessing upon our city leaders, Mayor Brown, Commissioner Smith, Fenger, Holmes, Robertson, Hulk, Carroll. You are a God who embodies where you are welcome. So we welcome you tonight in the discussions in the areas on the agenda: budgets, public hearings, legislative matters, staff reports, community redevelopment. May you guide and bless all of this business. Grant the leaders wisdom. Grant the people a voice. May your blessing be upon your people tonight. Heavenly Father, in your name we ask. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with justice.
Thank you, and thank you, Pastor, for joining us tonight and kicking off our meeting.
You're welcome.
We don't have any ceremonial items today, so we'll move into citizens' comment and ask the city clerk if there's any citizens' comment that's been submitted.
I have two comments that came in via email. First one is from Tommy Glass. I am against the proposed rate increase. A 10% rate increase for the next 3 years is absolutely absurd and unethical. The second one is from Aiden Barnes. Dear County Commissioners, I received a letter today that there is a proposed sewer rate increase for Largo residents to increase sewer bills by 10%. I'm already paying anywhere from close to $300 to $320 every other month for water and sewer. $40 of it is toward garbage. My water bill has already gone up tremendously. I have lived in my home for over a decade. Please do not increase the bill. Citizens are already suffering financially due to COVID-19, and there are many people barely making it by as it is who are out of work. Senior citizens on fixed incomes would also suffer from increased prices on utilities. And that's all the comments I have.
Thank you. The next item is approval of the agenda.
Move approval. Second.
Commissioners.
I have a motion from Commissioner Holmes, a second from Commissioner Smith. All in favor, say aye and signal if you could.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes 7-0. Next is approval of the minutes from the regular meeting of July 7th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Holmes and a second from Commissioner Robinson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Can I hear the consent docket, please?
Item 3, renewal of RFP number 18-P-634, Group Voluntary DMO and PPO Dental Insurance to United Healthcare for a 1-year period beginning October 1st, 2020 through September 30th, 2021 in the estimated amount of $247,960. Item 4, renewal of RFP number 13-P-446, Group Medical Insurance for plan year October 1, 2020 to September 30th, 2021 with Public Risk Management of Florida Health Trust in the estimated amount of $12,100,000. Item 5, approval of the first renewal of agreement for the purchase, collection, marketing, and distribution of pelletized organic fertilizer with Pro Plus Products Incorporated. Item 6, approval of change order number 1 for RFP 19-P-672, Consultant Services Workday Enterprise Resource Planning Software Implementation to Collaborative Solutions, LLC, in the amount of $79,320. Item 7, resolution number 2276, authorizing the borrowing of money to purchase new Enterprise Resources Planning Software, parentheses, ERP, in the aggregate amount of $2,500,000 and awarding RFP number 20-P-701 to Regions Bank based on results from a request for proposal process.
Thank you. You've heard the consent docket. Could I have a motion?
I move to approve the consent docket without commission discussion as outlined in the commission packets.
Second.
I have a motion. Commissioner Holmes, a second from Commissioner Finger. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next up is item number 8, resolution number 2270.
Turn your speaker on, Arrow.
There we go.
Works better.
It works much better. Staff is bringing before you tonight Resolution 2270, which is approval of the 2020 through 2024 CDBG Consolidated Plan, which is the 5-year planning document for our Community Development Block Grant funding, and approval of the 2020-2021 Action Plan, which outlays the projected expenditures from our CDBG funds, home funding, and our state housing funding for this next fiscal year. There have been a few changes since this plan was brought to commission at the work session in June, and those are outlined in the commission memo. Probably the biggest one being that with the changing atmosphere with everything going on with COVID-19, HUD had lifted the subrecipient cap on how much we could spend on public services. And so we were expecting to be able to provide additional funding for our subrecipient applicants. However, further restrictions by HUD made it real clear as far as the direct correlation for COVID-19 response. So the final action plan does incorporate bringing those levels down to within that mandated cap that we have for CDBG for those public services. We did, however, put the additional funding that was allocated toward that into a line item specifically for COVID-19 mitigation response and recovery to be able to adapt quickly if there's additional public service needs such as fair housing counseling, or other needs that arise through recovery of COVID-19. And then also on the alternate projects list, which is a list of projects that is adopted as part of the action plan, if there's additional funding that comes about, or if one of the primary projects falls through, an additional project needs to be picked up. The slum and blight removal project that was on there was moved up to a higher priority on the list. So that was made in that change. And one item that has come out and come to our attention since this memo was written was, unfortunately, we were looking forward to this year being the first year in probably well over a decade that the state was going to fully fund our state housing trust fund, and that was represented in this plan. However, the governor has vetoed that line item at this point, which was approximately $900,000 we were expecting to have come into the city for housing, rehabilitation, and affordable housing. However, it has not been allocated toward other funds at this time. It's simply remaining in the trust fund while the governor rolls out additional CARES Act funding. So we have left this in the plan, and in the event that there is a special session that does allocate that money during this next year, that we have a plan in place and ready to go. So those are the changes since. This was publicly advertised, and we did not receive any comments. Happy to answer any questions.
Resolution number 2276, At 2270, a resolution of the City of Largo, Florida, approving the City of Largo Community Development Block Grant, parentheses CDBG, 2020 through 2024 Consolidated Plan, approving the City of Largo fiscal year 2020 through 2021 Annual Action Plan, authorizing the submittal of Largo's Consolidated Plan and Annual Action Plan to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, parentheses HUD, endorsing the Pinellas County, Florida fiscal year 2020 through 2021 Annual Action Plan, authorizing the city manager or his designee to accept said grant upon approval by HUD, providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment on this?
I have no emails and I see no hands up. Oh, wait a minute, I have it. No, never mind. Sorry, that was a chat. Not a hand up.
Okay, thank you. And does anybody on the commission have any questions? Commissioner Holmes.
Hey, Arrow, I don't know if you can see this or not. This was in the packet. Let's see if I can get it in there.
Yep, the sidewalk.
Target area sidewalk, and I was looking for a legend in here. I don't know if this red are sidewalks to be repaired or sidewalks to be installed. And the same thing with the green, is that to be repaired or installed?
The red portions are, I'm going to try and pull that up myself. So the red portions are where there's gaps in sidewalks, and then the green is where sidewalk exists. So we do have a project in the 2020, next year's action plan, the 21 action plan for a section of that area just north of Mildred Homes, that Washington Avenue neighborhood, to work on some of the connectivity in there and improving ADA accessibility of the sidewalks. There's some undersized ones there, and then also fixing gaps for connectivity.
Okay, so all the red is sidewalks with gaps or to be repaired, and I guess the green means they're okay?
That's my understanding, yes, sir.
Okay. And Woody, it's raining over here again.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem.
I was wondering. Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve resolution number 2270.
Second.
Motion, Commissioner Holmes, a second from Commissioner Robinson. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. We're going to move on to the next ordinance number 2020-35, and I'm going to ask if you could mute while the person is presenting. We had a little bit of background noise on the line.
Right. Good evening, Mayor and Commission. I'm sorry, my audio cut out there, so hopefully we're ready for item 9. Okay. This is the second reading of Ordinance 2020-35. This is a budget amendment amending the FY 2020 budget in the amount of $80,000 for additional workday training services. This is a budget transfer from existing appropriations to cover the additional training needs that we identified during the architect phase. There have been no changes since the first reading, and staff's available to answer any questions.
Ordinance number 2020-35, an ordinance of the City of Largo, Florida, amending the fiscal year 2020 budget adopted by resolution number 2224 by appropriating expenditures in the amount of $80,000 within the Information Technology Department Enterprise Technology Capital Fund for additional training and consulting services for the Workday Enterprise Resource Planning Software project, providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Do we have any public input on this?
I have no hands up and no emails. So no.
Thank you.
None.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission?
I move to adopt ordinance number 2020-35 on second and final reading.
Commissioner Smith, second.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Robinson, a second from Commissioner Smith. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed?
No.
Motion passes 6-1. Next, we have a legislative matter, the approval of the tax rate.
Okay, good evening, everyone. So tonight, this item before you is to approve the maximum tax rate to be established for FY21. Once the proposed budget and preliminary values are released on July 1st, the tax rate adoption process officially begins. The next step in this process tonight involves establishing the maximum tax rate for fiscal year 2021 and establishing the date and time for the first public hearing for the tax rate and budget adoption. All of the information provided tonight is communicated to our taxpayers on a TRIM or Truth in Millage notice. This year, the TRIM notices will be mailed out by the Pinellas County Property Appraiser's Office on Friday, July 21st. The TRIM notices advertise the proposed rate that's approved tonight of all the taxing authorities in Pinellas County, along with the date and time of the public hearing for adoption. The rates ultimately adopted in September can be lower than the rate included on the TRIM notices, but it cannot be any higher. The fiscal year 2021 city manager's proposed budget includes a property tax rate of 5.5 mils, which is a reduction from the current 5.62 mils. After receiving the official July 1st values, the increase in taxable value is 8.19%, which is actually down slightly from 8.37% that we received with our June 1st preliminary values. The growth in taxable value, along with the proposed reduction in tax rate, does, however, generate an additional $1.5 million in property tax revenue, which is approximately 6% more revenue than the FY20 budget. And this would represent a 4.97% official tax increase, thanks to the increases in new construction and annexation. So due to the uncertainty surrounding the current economic climate and our general fund revenue streams, how those will ultimately be impacted, the city manager recommends establishing the maximum millage rate tonight at our current rate of 5.62 mils. This will provide the City Commission with flexibility to ultimately lower the rate upon adoption in September, while also providing the opportunity to keep the rate the same to generate additional revenue should our financial information significantly change over the next 2 months. So attached to your agenda tonight to help facilitate this discussion is an analysis of potential tax rate options and the impact those rates have on our average single-family homeowner, a business in Largo, and also the long-range outlook for the general fund. The proposed maximum rate of 5.62 mils generates an additional $615,000 over the 5.5 mils included in the proposed budget. It represents a 7.21% tax increase, which is 8.21% revenue increase. This would impact our average homeowner with an increase of $19 in property taxes paid to the City of Largo on an annual basis, and would require 5 of 7 votes of the City Commission for adoption in September. In addition to being included on the TRIM notices, the proposed rate that is approved tonight will be discussed by the Finance Advisory Board on Monday, July 27th, along with their recommendations and feedback on the fiscal year 2021 budget. There also is a feature built into our digital budget engagement tool this year, Balancing Act, which is available on our website, where the community can select tax rate options in the general fund, which this is one of them. All of this feedback and any other feedback that we receive will be provided to the City Commission at the work session on August 11th, and again at the public hearing scheduled for Thursday, September 3rd. So that concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding the budget process or possible tax rate scenarios.
Thank you. Do we have any public input on this?
We don't have any public input.
Any questions from the commission? Comments? Commissioner Holmes.
Just to reiterate something we say every year, this is only the rate that we work with. This is the rate that we cannot exceed, but we can go below this amount. So before everybody starts sending us hate mail, whatever we adopt tonight, this is a working figure only. It is not the final draft. Meredith, you said the 5.62 generates an additional 615,000 over the 5.5. Is that true? Did I get that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay,
It's a
so,
total of $2.2 million in additional revenue.
okay, wait, say that again?
So it's a total of $2.2 million more than what we're currently bringing in tax revenue, but it's $615,000 more than the proposed rate in the budget.
Okay, and that's just based upon the property values going up, the taxable values increasing.
That's correct.
Okay, for now, that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Well, I'll give you a motion on the thing. I move to approve the proposed property tax rate for fiscal 2021 at the rate of 5.62 mils and schedule a first public hearing and property tax rate and budget adoption on September 3rd, 2020 at 6 p.m.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is resolution number 2272.
Can everyone hear me?
Cheryl, you're muted.
Yes, can everyone hear me as well?
Yes, very well.
So the police department's applying for community or coronavirus emergency supplemental funding. It's a grant from the Department of Justice in response to COVID-19 that's been hitting the country. They have $850 million that was available. The city of Largo was eligible for approximately $90,000 worth of the grant. And we have 3 submissions that we would like to total about the $90,000 that we would like to apply for. One of those is 2 computers for a victim advocate, and approximately $66,000 is for a software type program that the police department would implement for a multitude of reasons. I can explain that in a second. And the other 20 grand left is for any potential antibody testing or kind of vaccines that could become available should medicine kind of catch up with the virus right now and allow the officers to be tested and more vaccinated. I can go into the software program. That's the bulk of the project, or the money that we're asking for. And basically, it's a software that's allowed to integrate with our CAD and RMS data that's collected when reporting party or victim calls the police department. It allows the 2 software platforms, our CAD and RMS, and this company to communicate to gather data for one of 3 different modules. One is a patrol module, which basically we would collect that person's cell phone or email address. That information is put into our system to where the reporting party or the victim is automatically updated with the type of call that they have, the officers that are responding, the potential ETA. It's all customizable, what we want to give out. There's an investigations module that would allow the reporting party or victim to have updates automatically on their cell phone or through email for the case status. They have a reporting party, victim services, crime prevention steps. It's just endless because it's customizable. But basically, they're getting automatic phone calls or texts back to give them that information. And the third module, which is really one of the best things that we like it for, is called the Insights module, so that we can, after our services have been rendered, we can send the information back to them and solicit feedback. Feedback with surveys where we'd be able to get some kind of a benchmark on how our services are to them from their perspective. You know, are we lacking efficiency somewhere? Are there things that we can improve, processes that we can improve upon? We can get a benchmark, and then we can continue to feedback from the department to report a crime or other victim.
Resolution number 2272, a resolution of the City of Largo, Florida, authorizing the mayor, city clerk, and city attorney to execute a grant agreement with the United States Department of Justice through the Bureau of Justice Assistance's fiscal year 2020 Coronavirus Emergency Supplemental Funding Program, and to legally bind the city to said grant agreement without further authorization from the City Commission for a grant up to a maximum aggregate amount of $90,318, delegating to the city manager or his designee the authority to request federal reimbursement and to submit required reports, repealing all resolutions in conflict, and establishing an effective date.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment on this?
I have no public comment.
Any questions from the commission? Commissioner Smith.
I have a question. Cheryl, am I correct? This says that it does not require matching funds from the city?
Yes, that is correct, Commissioner Smith.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I move to approve resolution number 2272.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is item number 12, ordinance number 2020-43.
Good evening. Can you all hear me well?
Very good.
And you all can see my screen?
Yes.
The next ordinance is a first reading for 6 properties. The taxable value for this group is a little over $460,000 and will add an additional 1.06 acres to the municipal boundary. The land use of these properties are residential urban. These properties received the typical incentives provided through annexation agreements prior to annexation, which include the in-city sanitary sewer rates, the in-city recreation parks and arts rates, and the trash and recycling pickup service. These properties are located in the proposed expansion area being considered for the Clearwater Largo area district. All requirements as specified in Chapter 171 of the state statutes have been met, except for the advertisements which will be published before the public hearings, specifically on July 22nd and July 29th. All 6 properties are contiguous to the city's municipal boundaries through previous annexations and together help to reduce the size of existing enclaves. The ordinance proposes to annex property that is compact as that term is defined in Chapter 171 and are not enclaves. Therefore, it is staff's opinion that all the properties may be annexed voluntarily in accordance with Chapter 171. The Pinellas County Board of County Commissioners and Pinellas County Planning have been noticed and to date have not provided any objections. All city departments reviewed these annexations and indicated services can be provided to the properties. Staff is available for questions at this time.
Ordinance number 2020-43, an ordinance of the City of Largo, Florida, annexing the within described tracts of land located at 1769 and 1767 Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue, and 1764, 1765, 1766, and 1768 Farrell Avenue, Pinellas County, Florida, and contiguous to the existing city limits of the City of Largo, Florida, with city land use designation of residential urban, redefining the corporate boundary of the City of Largo to include said addition according to the provisions of Chapter 171 Florida statutes, providing for severability and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Do we have any public input on this?
No, I have no public input.
And do we have any questions from the commission?
I do.
Commissioner Smith, go ahead.
Isabella, that property on the left is what we just annexed a little bit ago, correct? And that's what Habitat for Humanity is looking at?
Correct. So this, can you see my mouse? Is it hovering?
Yes.
Yeah, so that is the one that Habitat is looking at.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead. Commissioner Rose.
Hey, Alan? Is Alan there?
Mr. Zimmett.
Mr. Zimmett, calling once, calling
Might
twice.
have to unmute.
Isabella, can you minimize your presentation?
Yes. Well, I can bring it back up after.
Okay. And I don't see,
I don't see an Alan. Then
No.
maybe I'll ask Henry then. Henry, we've had this discussion before about annexing. It used to be we had to do the legal reading of every property we were annexing if they had separate owners. If it was all the same owner, we didn't have to do it. But these are separate owners. I mean, I like the idea of doing these with one motion where we don't have to read each one individually. But I wonder what happened. Was the law changed, or did we reinterpret a state law or county ordinance where we can now do multiple properties with different owners and do it with one motion?
I try not to give legal advice, so I think Alan is back on the screen now. So we'll see. We'll let him take that one.
Unmute. There you go.
Yeah, sorry about that, but technology. I got changed to an attendee, and I no longer had the ability to participate in the discussion. I think what you might be referring to, Commissioner Holmes, is if it depends on how the properties are grouped. So these properties, if you look at them, are all adjacent to one another, so we can do them in one ordinance and one motion. But when we have properties that are not adjacent to one another and we're not annexing a compact piece of property at one time, we have to do them in separate ordinances. So if you look back at the map that Isabella had up there, all the properties are adjacent to one another.
Yeah, I've got it in front of me.
Okay, so, and you don't count the right-of-way. So when you do annexations, the right-of-way doesn't count. So the property across the street of Farrell Avenue, right-of-way, is considered compact.
Right.
So that is one compact area. So we can annex it by one ordinance. If they were separated by properties. So for example, let's say the ones in the middle were not being annexed, we would have to do them in separate ordinances.
Because I remember the days when we were doing annexations like they were going out of style. And some of these, if I recall, one of these annexations, we did 100 and some odd properties because we actually were taking turns making the motion. Right. And Diane and you where, she'd read some and then you'd read some, and we were doing these individually. And I remember I asked a question back then, how come we just can't make one motion and boom, and there it is. So anyway.
Yeah, no, in that case, they weren't contiguous.
Okay, thank you very much.
I had a question about, are these annexations within an enclave, or how do they not create an enclave? It looks like taking into consideration the right of way, they might create an enclave to the south.
I'll bring it back up here. So it's not in an enclave, and I can actually pull up our GIS right now as well, and we can zoom out a bit too.
Okay, I didn't expect it was, but.
Mm-hmm.
So how does that area to the south of the properties that we're annexing not become an enclave?
They still have available street as well, and so none of them are technically covered on all four. So you'll see this one here, they're still unincorporated in that side. And then this one still has this section here.
So it's still, I guess it's still just considered a county street rather than a City of Largo street, is that correct?
Correct. So when we annex in properties, we don't annex in roads. Until
all of the properties adjacent to the particular road are in the City of Largo, correct or no?
Right.
No, so we would have to do, correct me if I'm wrong, Alan, an agreement with the county, a separate agreement for the transfer of the road.
Right. So the way the roads are handled is a transfer agreement with the county. So just think of it like if this road was Belcher Road, the county would probably not want to transfer it to us.
Right.
So each road at some point is a subject of a transfer agreement with the county when it gets to the point where we should take over responsibility. And that's what the county and the city want to do. We would do a separate transfer agreement.
But just to be clear, a road alone can keep an area from becoming a Class A enclave or type
Right, so to be an enclave, if they have access to a county road to leave the area. So if you see here, they have access to Farrell, to Auburn, both county roads, then it's not considered an enclave.
Fair enough. Okay, thank you.
Woody, I got one more question.
Commissioner Holmes.
Hey, Isabel, can you put that map back up but zoom out?
Sorry, I'm not used to this new technology stuff.
You're doing well.
Now zoom out. Back off. What? Keep going.
Hold on, it's a little slow on my side.
Okay. What are all these? Are these all the red up on the right side there? Are those all in the city? Those were voluntary. What are those?
Yeah, so I left an extra layer on by there. Those are properties that have annexation agreements tied to them that are still operated.
So those are all voluntary annexation agreements.
Correct.
And they're getting the sewer rates and everything else? Mm-hmm. Okay. Boy, that's quite a surprise. Thank you.
And because they're not in an enclave, they can't be annexed until they become contiguous, correct?
Right.
Correct.
Right. But the ones in this type A enclave a little bit farther down into the east, those red properties in there could be annexed currently over to the east a little bit farther.
Yeah. Yes. Over to the east.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, Mayor, you're correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions? Go ahead.
I move to approve ordinance number 2020-43 on first reading and schedule a second reading and public hearing on August 4th, 2020.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next is ordinance number 2020-44, city charter amendments.
Yes, Mayor and Commissioners, this is ordinance 2020-44 on first reading. We call a referendum on two proposed charter changes that emanate from the Charter Review Committee's report that was made to you and discussed at the last commission meeting. You had a consensus to put on the ballot two proposed changes to the charter. The first one amends the charter to allow the lease of real property owned by the city for 7 years instead of just for 5 years. And the second one would extend the time for a period between charter review committees being convened from 7 years to 10 years. What you have new in the ordinance that you have not seen before are the proposed questions that would appear on the ballot. They comply with state statute, which limits us to 75 words in terms of the question. The question must end with either yes or no answer, yes being for the amendment and no against the amendment. And they comply with the laws as it relates to the length of the title. So these two questions, if you approve the ordinance on second reading, will appear exactly the way they appear in the ordinance, will appear on the ballot in November for the voters to approve. So with that, staff's available for any questions. We'd recommend approval of the ordinance.
Ordinance number 2020-44, an ordinance of the City of Largo, Florida, submitting to the city electors proposed amendments to the city charter, including a proposed amendment to section 2.12 regarding referendum approval for leases, and a proposed amendment to section 9.02 regarding the convening of a charter review committee, providing for a referendum election, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Do we have any public input on this?
I have no public input.
Any questions from the commission? Commissioner Holmes.
Thank you. Henry, when we lease property, I know they come up for renewal, but the average company that's leasing from us, how many years do they usually lease something?
Well, right now, it's usually 5 years because that's what the limitation is in the charter without going to referendum. We routinely have discussions with businesses. Cell phone companies are a good example that would prefer a longer lease term so that they can have a return on their investment, because in many cases they're making a considerable investment in that case communications equipment, so they don't want to have to move it after 5 years.
Okay, is it in the city's best interest to keep this on a 7-year cycle, a 5-year cycle, or try to push it to 10 years? I had this conversation with Alan already, and he said it didn't pass, the last time. And I thought, well, perhaps it's in the presentation, but I guess you'd have to go back to say how many companies lease something from us, and usually how long. Now, I don't care what we allow on a lease, but how long do they usually stay? And I think these cell phone towers, I do recall we've renewed several of these leases already.
Oh, some of them have probably been around for 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the case, why don't we just try to get this thing for 10 years instead of 7? I don't know what the difference would be going 7 to 10.
Yes, staff's preference was 10 years, but certainly I'm assuming what the Charter Review Committee did was because 10 years was voted down, 7 years ago now, that the 7 years was a midpoint between 5 and 10. So anything beyond 5 is certainly, I think, helpful when we're negotiating a lease with someone.
Well, I mean, if it were me, I would go for the 10. I would just as soon try to get this thing done for 10 years. And some of these companies, they've leased from us for, 20 years and longer. Why jump through all these hoops every 7 years? Just my opinion.
Yeah, and if I can just add to that, Henry's exactly correct. That was a discussion at the committee as to why they selected 7. I also will tell the commission, when we do lease agreements, we usually have a way to terminate them earlier if there's a breach of the agreement, and sometimes even without cause, we have a reason that we can terminate them. So, but our history has been that we've been renewing these lease agreements when they come up every 5 years. But we hear feedback that, hey, we're making a pretty big investment, a capital investment, and we're taking a risk that in 5 years you're going to terminate you're not going to renew. Which is why the staff had asked the last time for the 10 years. But again, it didn't pass last time. The vote was relatively, wasn't like as I recall, it was about 200 votes that it lost by. So whatever the commission wishes to do, I think staff would support.
Well, I think this year's election is going to have a huge turnout. And I think if you go for 10, we'll probably get it. I
think that it's probably a little easier to reach folks with the explanation of what this is now than it was 7 years ago as well. And a lot more people are paying attention to things on the internet and Facebook stuff. And so I tend to agree with Commissioner Holmes on this, that we might as well try for 10 again. I don't remember much outreach on explanation of what those charter amendments were and why we were looking for them to pass. I think if we did a little bit of that public outreach as elected officials, we could probably have a lot of support for both of these pretty easily.
And not only that, it's going to be an easier presentation because you'll have 2 items on a 10-year cycle.
Right, and a pretty brief and good explanation of why this makes sense and makes it more efficient for the city and et cetera.
And if I could add, Mayor, the last time there were 3 or 4 additional questions on the ballot.
Yeah, there was a bunch of them.
That I think we paid more attention to because they were considered to be a little bit more important at the time. So this one might have gotten a little lost in the information that the city did put out, because we did provide information about the changes, but this was down the list.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Alan, do you need a motion to change this thing from 7 to 10?
Yeah, we would need a motion to change the ordinance, to change that from 7 to 10. And then you can still go ahead and approve this on first reading, and we'll make that change for second reading.
Okay. On ordinance, what do you want a motion on this?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, unless someone else has got questions on it.
Oh, if we can have a motion to amend ordinance 20.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna give you a motion we can vote on the amendment and then go back and vote to approve as amended. On ordinance number 2, I move on ordinance number 2020-44, section 2.12 to change the lease cycle for city property from 7 years to 10 years.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes 7-0.
Hey, can I, before we move on to the next motion, I just want to make sure that I do support, the comments that are being made about the lengthening of the lease. I just want to make sure that, we do promote it, and Henry, that we're working really hard with the communications team to promote it. I think it really makes sense, but, people, some people might look at this as some way we're trying to get, trying to do something shady. I don't know. I'm not sure why it didn't pass, 7 years ago, but, I think we just need to make sure we put a good message out there. And I know our communications team is more than capable of doing that. So
we will certainly do that. I think we're much better at communicating now than we were 7 years ago.
I would absolutely agree with it.
You got 2 10s. You got 2 Bo Derricks going.
All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve ordinance number 2020-44 as amended on first reading and schedule a second reading and public hearing on August 4th, 2020.
Second.
Commissioner Holmes, a second from Commissioner Carroll. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. Next is staff report.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and Commission. I'm excited to be here and discuss the Duke Energy CEC, or Clean Energy Connection Program. This program would help us tremendously towards our efforts for Ready for 100, which states that we will achieve 100% clean renewable energy as an organization by 2035. This program, being initiated by Duke, is a 30-year program that has an opt-in request for municipal governments by August 31st. And these programs will allow us to, just said, as it is similar to putting solar on your home, and that energy goes into the grid and you get credit for that. This program would similarly allow you to purchase into a large solar program that Duke runs at 10 sites throughout the state. We wish to request to offset 100% of our energy usage, which totals around 10 megawatts annually. We understand that the program itself will be oversubscribed for the carve out for municipal government. So we do know that all municipalities will have a reduction on what their requested amount is. And we don't know what that methodology is yet at this point until Duke is able to examine the full amount of subscriptions. So with that, I will leave it to you and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions?
I have a question.
Sure, Commissioner Smith, thank you.
What cities have already opted in or subscribed to this in Pinellas County?
Yes, so the city of St. Pete has already opted in at 100%. Dunedin, Clearwater, Pinellas County, and some others are in the process of taking this to their commissions as well.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Sounds good. Thank you. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Forward to it.
Next up, I will recess the City Commission meeting and to start a CRA meeting for one agenda item number 15.
Mayor, do you want to announce that you have a conflict, and it might be best that you just allow the vice mayor to run this portion of the meeting?
I will. I'm going to abstain from voting, and congratulations, Vice Mayor Hulk. You get to run the CRA meeting for this item, and then I'll move us back to the commission meeting afterwards.
All right. I don't even know where to start now because you just like totally threw me off of this. So Carissa is going to do a presentation for us on the recommendation on housing info program.
Yes, thank you very much. Good evening, honorable Community Redevelopment Board members. The purpose of this item is to present the recommendations from the Community Redevelopment Advisory Board, also known as the CRAB, for a grant application under the Housing Infill Program for the Skyview Townhomes. The CRAB reviewed the grant application package at their meeting in June, and the applicant, Flagship Holdings LLC, is building a new urban infill construction project with 16 townhomes split among 4 buildings, and Mr. Don Flagg is participating on this call representing the applicant. This is the second time that we have been in front of the CRA board with a HIP grant incentive request. The HIP provides qualified property owners that develop homes for sale a grant of up to $10,000 per unit with a cap of $250,000 per project. The HIP grant process includes a staff presentation with the CRAB, and following the presentation and discussion, the CRAB provides a recommendation on whether to award a grant and on an amount. So if you all agree with the CRAB recommendations, then the next step is to negotiate an agreement and bring it back to you at a future CRA meeting. Next, I'm going to be showing the aerial. This is an aerial of the Skyview Townhome site. This HIP grant application is for the property off of 1st Avenue Southwest on the lots between Ridge Road Southwest and 6th Street Southwest. The property totals approximately 0.66 acres and is designated as mixed-use corridor character district in the West Bay Drive Community Redevelopment District. The new homes will each be 3 stories high and in excess of 2,000 square feet, with a 2-car garage on the first floor, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a kitchen, and a finished rooftop deck for entertaining or gardening. Here are some renderings of the Skyview townhomes. The homes will have high quality upgraded finishes, including dual sinks in the master bath, stainless steel appliances, granite countertops, wood grain tile, and impact windows. The applicant chose the site to bring much needed high quality housing and to be in close proximity to Ulmer Park, Largo Central Park, dining, shopping, beaches, and of course the Pinellas Trail. Staff presented the grant application package to the CRAB and calculated that if the maximum incentive of $160,000 is provided, the tax increment generated by the new townhomes will be regained by the West Bay Drive Tax Increment Fund within 5 years of completion of the buildings. The CRAB, in a vote of 7-0 with 4 members absent, recommended to approve Flagship Holdings LLC for a HIP grant award in the full qualifying amount of $160,000. The board felt that the project deserved the full funding amount since the new townhomes will complement the design guidelines of the redevelopment district and bring downtown living options. Staff is requesting your recommendation for this HIP grant for the Skyview Townhomes project. And at this time, staff, as well as the applicant, Mr. Don Flagg, are available to answer questions.
Do we have any questions from the commission?
Yes.
Commissioner Holmes.
Is this $160,000, is that a cash payment to the developer? Or is this something we take out in trade, i.e. sewer rates, property taxes, franchise fees, stuff like that?
That's a great question. The grant is a cash payment that is made after certain milestones have been completed for the project. We'll be using a template if the grant is approved. We have a agreement already from 158 Ridge that we'll be using as a template. In that situation, there was project milestones. There were 4 project milestones that the new development had to meet. And until those were met, then they would get a portion, they would receive a portion and be dispersed the funds. But they didn't receive their last payment until the certificate of occupancy had been issued for the entire property.
So basically, it's just a draw account then. Basically. Okay. Looks like a good project. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions?
Commissioner Smith, I have a question. I may have gone out. Did you say 5 years we'll get our return?
Correct.
Okay.
After the completion of all the buildings.
Okay, thank you.
I move to approve the Community Redevelopment Agency Advisory Board's recommendation for the Housing Infill Program grant for the Skyview Townhome projects and to authorize staff to negotiate an incentive agreement with the Flagship Holding LLC.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0. And now I will convene the CRA, adjourn the CRA and return to our commission meeting. Thank you very much, Carissa.
Thank you. Have a great night.
You too.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Hulk.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Flagg, for being here to answer any questions as well. And it looks like, I'm going to say, because the discussion's done, but it does look like a great project. So we're happy to see some cool things coming up out of the ground in downtown. So Vice Mayor Hulk did do a great job of adjourning the previous meeting and moving on back to the City Commission meeting. So we will ask if Mr. Zimmett has anything this evening.
Yes, I do have one item. We have had some settlement discussions in the matter of David and Tina Chase versus City of Largo, a case that's pending in the 6th Judicial Circuit. We would request that the commission schedule a shade meeting for 5 o'clock on August 4th before your next meeting. We would do that shade meeting by Zoom if we are still meeting virtually. And since the executive order of the governor expires on August 7th, you will be able to meet virtually. It's case number 2017 CA 001445. And we are requesting, we may not need the full hour, but we're requesting an hour of your time to do a shade meeting to get some direction with regard to the settlement discussions and settlement strategy in the matter of David and Tina Chase versus City of Largo. Can we get a consensus that that would be acceptable?
I see a majority of heads nodding. Any problems with the 4th? Sounds good.
All right, City Clerk will do a notice and we will, the court reporter can appear by Zoom. So as you recall, we will need to have a court reporter in the closed session. So if we do it by Zoom, she will attend in that fashion. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Carroll, anything this evening?
I have nothing tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith.
Is Mr. Schubert still online?
I believe so. Unless Diane kicked him off. That's entirely possible.
If possible, we can maybe address those citizens' comments, the questions they had about the stormwater question. I know the notice just went out, and if we could talk about that a little bit and explain why it's the 10% and where it was to those citizens.
Yes. Somebody kicked me out, but I'm back. What we've done is included in the revenue projections in the budget is a proposed 10% increase in the sewer rates each year for the next 3 years. There is a public hearing scheduled on that. The City Commission will consider it. The City Commission obviously is not bound by that number. You can certainly do something different. It could be a different number. It could be only 1 year as opposed to a 3-year rate increase. When the lady mentioned the size of her bill, she mentioned it was over $300 every 2 months. That bill includes the solid waste collection fees, stormwater utility fees, water, which is from Pinellas County, and our sewer. So even if the City Commission were to adopt a 10% increase, it would not be 10% on top of that over $300 bill. It would be substantially less than that.
Could we reach out to those 2 citizens that sent us questions if we have their contact information?
Yes, we'll certainly will do that. Yes.
Okay. And the other is, go ahead.
I just want to follow up on that subject. If we could just let them know the process, like there's going to be a public hearing on such and such a date for this year's proposed increase, and I suspect that there would be a following public hearing in the future. We're not going to pass a 3-year plan of increases. We're going to do them each year as we've done in the past, and sometimes those future increases go away because of revenue things happen or whatever. So if you could kind of explain how the process will go moving forward.
Certainly will.
And also, what have we've done to improve the city and what's going forward?
Yes.
In my background, this is the last commission meeting of the month for parks, and my background is of the nature preserve. So if the citizens of Largo can get an opportunity to go out and see the nature preserve, it has a great pond, and the sunset is a great scene there. If you can see from behind my head, I have a pretty big head.
Doesn't it close at dark?
Yes, well, yeah, somewhat. And the other is, Henry, can you, I had a couple citizens reach out to me about Highland Pool. Is that going to be closed tomorrow? And can you give an update on that?
Yes, we had a lifeguard that works at the pool who was tested for COVID-19 and the test came back positive. We are closing the pool for, I believe it was the rest of the day, today and tomorrow. We will be doing some cleaning in some of the interior spaces that the lifeguards occupy. We are notifying everyone who was signed up for swim lessons and also notifying the public. And we will be following any direction we get from the health department as to how we would proceed. But hopefully the pool will just be closed for one full day, and then we think we should be able to reopen.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Finger.
I have nothing this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Holmes.
It's 80 degrees over in East Central Largo.
Thank you for the update. And then we're going to move on to, I got to go to the next page, Commissioner Robinson.
I don't have anything tonight.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Hulk.
Just everybody stay safe and diligent, and keep praying for some normalcy here soon. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank Commissioner Hulk for taking the reins unannounced today for a little bit. If I would have known ahead of time, I would have probably told you ahead of time, but I didn't. So thank you for filling in. Sorry about the phone that's ringing in the background right now. And I also wanted to put on my Rays hat because baseball is about to start up. In the background of me is the Largo Little League field. So they've been playing a little bit of social distance baseball out there. But today I got to go to the library and I tipped my hat to the 100th anniversary of the beginning of the Negro Leagues. So there's a display at the library celebrating that. So it kind of coincides with the opening day, even though opening day is now a few months after it was supposed to be. So I'm excited to see some baseball, even though the fans in the crowd will be cardboard. So that's all I had. Mr. Schubert.
I have nothing this evening.
And Diane, do we have any action items?
Yes, we had the one from Commissioner Smith and Mayor Brown that staff reach out to tonight's speakers regarding the proposed sewer increase and the process for adopting and implementing the increase, as well as the improvements the city has made to the sewer system.
Great. If there's no more from the commission, meeting is adjourned and we will see you. Oh, I did want to, before I adjourn the meeting, I take that back. I did want to mention the first meeting in August, which is August 4th. It is before the state's emergency order expires. I wanted to have a quick discussion about whether we wanted to commit to another Zoom meeting in that first meeting of August and kind of go from there. Is everybody okay being online again, first meeting in August? And we'll kind of make a decision moving forward from there. I see mostly nods.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. That'll be the plan. Thank you. Is that a comment, Mr. Zimmett, or is that just?
I just wanted to add on to that something I'll provide you. I do have some information, albeit hearsay, that the governor is going to extend the order for another month.
Okay, so, but as far as direction, we're good until August 4th, and then we'll move forward from there.
Right, but I just want to let the commission know while I had your attention that the anticipation is right now that he's going to extend it for another month.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised by that. All right, well, you all have a nice evening, and meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.